Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, get the gavels out, we get legislative, and we tackle the biggest decision facing college football.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks as always for making us your first listen. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. And right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet hits. So download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started and bet with FanDuel, official partner of the NBA with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you. And on today's episode, we're diving into what's been called this week the biggest decision facing college football. We sort of also dove into it already on a previous episode because we've got great foresight, men of infinite wisdom. So we'll circle back to a portal window conversation, but it does actually take a different turn as to the proposed window that is preferred. We're thinking we're boiling down to one window alone, but is it spring? Is it winter? We'll dive into that coming up in just a moment. And I actually have a question I want to ask you regarding the Texas Tech portal effort that we have just been experiencing. And maybe if there's anything we'd have to add to it, if we could, just maybe pick a cherry on top here or there to add to what's been a great collection so far. We'll get to that in just a moment, but I also wanted to get into something that is, of course, tied into portal efforts to kick off our conversation. And that's something that's happened in the state of Texas this week. We've seen it happen elsewhere in some different varieties, but the Texas Cinnamon Senate, they're cinnamon flavored, unanimously passing a bill this week that would now allow colleges and universities to enter directly into NIL payments. Previously, you had the middleman, you had the go-between, you had the collectives, the associations, the private businesses, whatever they might have been out there to provide sort of this buffer between college and university. We all know this is the direction, obviously, that we are now headed with a revenue sharing era upon us. But I was kind of curious just to get your thoughts on this quickly as we begin, because we saw this, I think, in sort of a similar fashion come to pass, say, in Tennessee not too long ago. And it was not without, I guess, some controversy in a way. But I sort of feel like if you're a state that's not at the forefront of this and you're one that thinks you care about competing on the college level, there's also some disadvantage, whether it's just lost time or lost opportunity, that could be a part of this as well. So it's not like a surprise to see it happen or see it on its way to happening in the state of Texas, Chris, but it hasn't been met without some controversy, I guess, here or there as far as media narratives.
Yeah, you kind of tease something as like the biggest decision, and I feel like, yeah, spin the wheel. Everybody's got their own version of that. It's just this is the time of year where games are so far off into the distance still, and yet everybody's trying to figure out what in the world are we doing? How's this going to work? Rules, laws, antitrust, Senate, Congress, everything. It's quite frustrating, and yet it's extremely meaningful for something that we all care about so much in the sport of college football. But every state's got a version of a law. There's different wording in every state on what you're allowed to do, who can come after you, how far along it's approved or it's just been presented and introduced or passed or all these different things. This is this was going to happen, some form or fashion. This was going to happen, and I think it will be in every state. Okay, so at face value, unless I've missed something here, this again, it allows schools to pay athletes directly. And what is interesting is some states have said, "Hey, yeah, but these are private. Like you can't open records, request this information. This stays private." Again, they're not employees. It's back to the whole.
Right.
I find all of this like somewhat fascinating and like okay, like just wake me up and tell me what rules we've got and what's allowed to happen, and let's go, right? But like, I mean, where I'm interested in something like this, if you're going to allow schools to do this, and then is it public or is it private? Because I think we'd all love to know if Texas Tech has to show their cards. Don't we think that TCU and Baylor has to do the same? And this is how a lot of this stuff will be kept track of on, are you under the cap, or what really went on? Hey, Steve Sarkisian, I know you've pushed back on the dollar figure that was rumored with your roster. You've said it was bad reporting. It was poor form. Okay, what's reality? You don't get to hide behind the the curtain anymore. And so I don't know. That part of it is intriguing to me. But I do think that some of this is going to be based on the House settlement, and there's this whole thing where you're trying to get all these 70 schools or the Power Four, like, hey, everybody's going to sign this deal, no more lawsuits. Again, it just makes me want to throw my head through a plate glass window. However, I certainly understand that these are all very important. Everybody's fighting for what's best for them, whether it's their state, their school, their league, whatever. But this is just kind of part of what we're dealing with right now in college football in 2025, especially in the month of May, and we'll spill into June.
Is this something else you think that helps pave the path towards some further separation from the NCAA? Whenever you've got states stepping into positions like this, to me, it's just kind of, and it's sort of like what you already said, spin the wheel and just pick things that are paving the path towards separation, because a lot of it is leading towards separation. But this is on that list, right?
It's like, is NIL the biggest thing that we've got to sort through in college football? Is it the CFP? Is it regular season scheduling? Is it conference championship games? Is it transfer portal window or not, or two of them or whatever? Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, I mean, well, and I don't want to jump ahead here, but there are things out there that are very frustrating for the Power Four, and I know some are saying it's just really the Power Two, and I certainly would listen to that because in some ways that is indeed accurate, unfortunately for the Big 12 and a school like Texas Tech. But maybe and what is NIL going to be post House settlement approval? I just think you're still looking at litigation. You're still looking at, like, you can't. I mean, again, I've just said this before, but I mean, you can't. You're going to have a hard time putting the toothpaste back in the tube here and saying, wait a second, so this player's services were worth this 3 months ago, but we skip ahead and some court, some judge in California rules on something, and now their services are worth this, and you're telling me I can't. I mean, like, what are we doing? So there'll be plenty of lawyers that will push back on that and say, hey, let's test it.
No doubt.
Yeah, and that part is a bit tricky, because I'm fascinated. So let's localize this. I am fascinated how Texas Tech will conduct business long term and in the short term. I think they've operated in the short term with the rules that were in place and been extremely aggressive. What does Texas Tech? What are they able to do once we get some norm? And maybe we never get that. Maybe we never get a new normal. I don't know. But what does NIL look like here? Regardless of what the state of Texas says you can and cannot do, because this is just, unless I'm misunderstanding, this is just something saying we're going to funnel it through the school, or the school can be directly involved and we can rev share, we can do NIL or whatever. But I mean, again, if I'm restaurateur, or is that the right term, restaurateur? What and I own a variety of eating establishments, and I want to put JT Toppin on the menu, and you can come in and order the JT Toppin ribeye. Shout out to my man Cowan, who sells some great ribeyes himself.
And we're open to a deal.
Yes, you are. Yeah, we're open to a lot of deals. I figured at some point, like, we'll have an apparel deal. Like we would rep your logo as good as anybody here on a daily basis. But you know, how are you going to determine that you can't tell an outside entity that owns a bunch of restaurants, steakhouses, that JT Toppin ribeye can't be on the menu? I mean, just using an example, I don't know. I don't know how that will be policed, or, you know, we're far beyond the honor system. I mean, come on, man. I mean, you know, so I don't really know what does Texas Tech want? What does everybody want? I think those are different. And like I would say this too, Cowan. Like there's been some things that have come out in the last day or two that I'm intrigued by. Texas A&M, for example. I think Tennessee, Clemson.
First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, and the NBA playoffs are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers a great way to get in on all the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet hits. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to really win big. So don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
Texas A&M, for example. I think Tennessee, Clemson. They have decided to fully fund. Remember all these scholarship numbers that we got a year or so ago, whatever it was? Like you can, you know, this 11.7 in baseball. You can have 30 scholarships for baseball if you want now. You can have up to 105 on football. Okay, all these increased numbers across the board. Well, A&M has decided that they're going to fully fund their rosters. Like everybody will be on scholarships, i.e., I take that to mean no more walk-ons anymore. Like we will fully fund the from 1 to 105 in football and so on, the maximum amount. It's like 150 total across an athletic department. But what they don't, what's not explained, or like, I think there's a catch here. If you do that, that is now $2.5 million less than you are able to pay out via revenue share. So, like the A&M football roster isn't going to be as funded as well as the schools that do have the walk-ons or whatever. Like it's just $2.5 million minus that 20.5 that you're allowed to pay out. So it spills over in everything. And the reason I'm touching on this is because, okay, they must think we're not worried about that because we'll just do NIL stuff off to the side. But wait a second, it's supposed to be minimal. We got to go through this little deal, and you can only do $600 agreements, and they've got to be I mean, come on, man. So you see what I'm saying? There's some mixed signals here. You cannot tell me that A&M is going to go, yeah, we'll go at it with far fewer dollars spending on football. Then no, they must feel like there's some gray area to operate in, and Tennessee's the same. Clemson. I mean, these people care deeply about football at these institutions, and so, but they've decided to fully fund, and maybe that's their way of saying we're not going to give any NIL or rev share money to those minor sports. We've scholarshiped the whole roster. You know, maybe that's their way around it. Anyway, the whole thing is very fascinating to me, and sorry for taking a sidetrack there, but I think it's all tied together. It's very confusing. It's very enlightening. It's very, I don't know.
I'm sure they're going to find a way to be well financed in all aspects. No doubt about that.
Yes.
I don't think we'll have to lose any sleep worrying about them in that regard. Speaking of some of those from SEC country, we've seen, as you and I were discussing yesterday on the episode, talking about Big 12 meetings and very likely things to be primarily discussed. One of those being getting rid of double portal windows and boiling it down to one. And a comment was made this week, Chris, by Kirby Smart, calling that actually the biggest decision facing college football. But what I thought was really more interesting was that it seemed like there was, from that perspective, or that conference's perspective, some preference toward a January window or a winter window. And we spent most of our time yesterday talking about, getting it down to one, but I think we were focusing more on the spring and, lining up with academic calendars and things like that. So I was kind of curious to hear your thought on that January window being a preference for some ones. And I'm wondering already about the pros and cons of that timing and what could or could not be lessened or exacerbated if it's happening there. I mentioned some things yesterday as far as like end of season or postseason, sit outs and people missing playoff games because they're already going to hit the portal or things like that. We know all of this, or getting in the portal and getting back out with the same team. So these things I do think can really be impacted by the timing of this, but I guess I was a little surprised to hear them talking so much about January as opposed to something later on down the road.
Yeah, I mean, so after Kirby Smart stated that, and again, this is just another example of everybody's got a different biggest issue right now with the sport of college football, and yet who's in charge of this whole deal? So let's talk through this. The American Football Coaches Association initially introduced this possibility. I don't know if it was like this past January or even into last year, like 2024. There was consensus among the group to go to one portal window. Okay, so we've kind of known that this was trending this way. Then it comes down to, okay, well, when should that window be? Which is why you're bringing this up. And yet who? I mean, I think Kirby Smart's direct quote was, "Who's actually deciding this? Like, who can approve it? When can we implement it?" And nobody has that answer, because I think the Power 4 schools may have different opinions there. And I don't know what the Big 12 stance is. We may find this out when the football coaches, because the football coaches are set to be in Orlando today, as you and I talk on this lovely Thursday. This is their day, so maybe we get a consensus on what the Big 12 feels on, do we want one and when do we want it? That's part of the problem of the Power 4 or Power 2, whatever, and some of the lower level leagues, is that we're waiting on this NCAA to ramrod through what we feel like is a common sense rule. Everybody is in agreement. What's the holdup? How do we get it done? And that is part of the NCAA holdup here, or what their issue is by being governed by this toothless, lax leadership group out of Indianapolis that is just doesn't have near as much say so, but yet they still do. Weird. Okay, so why would you want to have it in January as opposed to? I think that's a lot of times coaches are have an opinion on the calendar because you're trying to create breaks for yourself. You're trying to protect you from your own self, and you're like, well, we need some time off. We can't be. I don't know what the angle would be for obviously if January you get them in, you're going to have your new portal entries in longer, and you get to have them go through whatever off season or the bulk of it. I just gave my thoughts and opinions on. I think it would be best for the postseason if you removed it from immediately after a season ends. I think it puts more emphasis on the high school players. January, and I'd be curious to know, because their argument is we want one window and we want fewer portal days, because there's like 21 right now in December or close to 18, 19, and there's like 15. And it's basically like the equivalent of a little over a month. And so, everybody starts class in January. Does this limit your ability to host visits if it's in January, or when can you start class? And the playoff is still going to be spilling out into January. So a few select programs, I mean, fortunate for them, but they will miss out on some of this or being dealing with this simultaneous. So I don't know the reasoning for the January one, but maybe that's the way everybody feels. I was just giving my opinion on why I thought like a late spring would maybe be better, and you could go through the spring and really identify, okay, this is what we really need. We gave our young guys a chance. It's not working. So I don't know. It's tomato scenario, I guess. But heck, like I said, I'm not even sure when we'll get this approved or when this will be implemented on 1 versus 2, and who decides on when is the best window exactly. So a lot to discuss and try to figure out. But we had a portal party back in December, and now you're talking about January, and so I don't know.
Well, I'm thinking it's not going to ease any of the late season or postseason issues if we're talking about guys being in the portal or opting out of ball games. If that was to be the case, because that's a big decision to try and crunch in sort of a short amount of time. I would think for some of those players, not that
unless you pay them to, unless there's revenue share or NIL or incentives, bowl game incentives, whatever, to stay through the final game of your team's season.
Yeah,
I think that is coming. I think that may be already in place at some level. I think that, and some may go, look, hey, you're going to pay me $20,000 to play in this postseason game. I'm an NFL draft pick. It's still not worth it to me to participate. I appreciate the offer, but I'm gonna go ahead and forego this last game or whatever. But I think that some of that is indeed coming, and maybe it would be limited compared to what we've seen in the past, because you would have had a lot more guys able to participate in the game if you just you have Taj Brooks doing the NFL thing. But you've also got, and Josh Kelly did the same, but you had a lot of guys that didn't participate because they were already portaling, or they were, and now like in Jordan Brown's case, he still participated in the game and he was in the portal, but I just think overall, I think good point.
That's kind of crazy too, to think about opting out and then not being drafted. I mean, I wonder if it would change the mindset for some of those guys if you had a more realistic thought about what was on the line money wise with that final game versus what you thought was upcoming as a undrafted free agent or whatever it might be, because that's getting into some dice rolling territory if you're on that side of the draft. But either way, I think the one portal window, definitely something, as we've said over and over on this show, we are heading toward. And I don't think it was just you from a spring standpoint. It seemed like there had been assessments and recommendations otherwise nationally where there was more steam behind the spring thing. So this is just one perspective. If you're talking about an SEC perspective, then obviously it's one with great influence, but we'll see if it's actually going to be coming to fruition there in January or later on down in the calendar. Just another option to consider. Before we're getting out of here, Chris, I did want to ask you this because I'm thinking about the portal this week. And of course, Texas Tech has done so much great work in the portal since the season came to an end. You made reference to the December portal party, and then we've gotten a few more doses since then. But I'm wondering about if we could just have that cherry on top, or if we could be greedy, or maybe you just think, hey, this was actually a void we did not fill. Is there any type of player that would stand out to you that you'd say, I'd still love to add something like this to this class if I could just have my pickings?
That is a wonderful question. Like, so do you have a position of, here's the way I would look at that. Like, so what I hear you asking is, what questions do you have on your team right now? And what if you could do something about it? Money not a problem. The talent was there. What would you go bring in here to try to answer said question? It's a good one. I do wonder. Maybe a feature running back. I mean, and maybe that's recency bias because we've just lost one, and like where I had a guaranteed answer. Because right now you're going to go at it by committee. That may not be a bad thing, but it would be one less question. Like, hey, I know this dude's getting the bulk of the carries. He's proven. I know what I'm going to get. There's an unknown here. Quentin Joyner may, in fact, emerge. Jacoby Williams is going to be really good. Cam Dickey, if he stays healthy, I think he's got a ton of upside and skill set and all the things, but it's a question. And we're sitting here wondering aloud, like, do you have a bell cow on offense? Like, do you know where your bread and butter is going to, where it's coming from? Like, when push comes to shove, who do you feed? And there's some fun possibilities, but that is one question. I mean, defensively, what if you could, maybe you go add another, like, just a proven legit linebacker just to give you some depth there. Although, I mean, I love Curry and Rodriguez and Roberts and Bryce Ramirez and Dingle. And I don't know. It's pretty fascinating. And it tells you how well they did in the portal that we're sitting here going, I mean, would you add another, like, offensive lineman, like a proven, like, commodity that was a sure thing? Would it be a quarterback? Do we have a question at quarterback? I think there's no doubt. Although that to me, that's tricky, Cowan, because you're asking somebody to come in, as good as they may be. Okay, come be the face of the program. Come get all these guys to believe in you and buy into what you're about, and be likable, be coachable, be really good, and earn trust overnight. That's a lot to ask if you go bring in a quarterback, because I think there's a question about quarterback here, and it's based on Barron's health and can he take you to the promised land and all those things. But I don't know. How would you answer this question?
We didn't swap answers prior to the show, but I would have said exactly what you said initially. I'd have gone to the running back spot, just because we're going to be in for such a change as far as how the workload is carried or shouldered from last year and the Taj Brooks era in general to what I think we have coming up. And I don't know, maybe it's not the case. And Quentin Joyner does turn out to be somebody that can be in a workhorse kind of category, or Jacoby Williams or Cameron Dickey. I don't know. We just haven't seen that before from them so far in their careers. So it's hard to just assume that would be the case. And I'm not saying that's the best way to even approach it. So there may be some advantage found in being able to distribute it a little bit more evenly, but it worked awful well for Texas Tech. So I would go there first. I think if I had to come up with the defensive answer, I'd probably go the defensive secondary, just because those quality guys are so hard to find, particularly if we're talking cornerbacks. You were so bad in that area a year ago. I know you've made some additions, and we're excited, like with all the rest, as to what they can possibly do. But if I could just be greedy, I don't know that I'm sitting here thinking like, oh, it's still a concern or a void that hasn't been filled. But if I could just say, yeah, let's stack up even a little more here, I'd probably go to that defensive secondary, I think. But, there's obviously it's a team game and it all goes hand in hand. So I'm hoping the secondary became better as soon as Lee Hunter got on campus as well. So there's a give and take between the front and the back, obviously.
And I think you attempted this, but because, I mean, Reggie Virgil and I think the young man from Incarnate Word, Roy Alexander, like, and then Terrence Carter. I mean, I saw Terrence Carter on a 3rd or 4th round mock draft recently, which was interesting to me because he's going to be such a weird outside the box skill set guy in that he's a tight end, but he's shorter, but he's going to line up, with a hand on the ground and then flexed out. And, but he's 6'2", close to 250, and he moves extremely well. And that's why it was surprising to me to see but I mean, am I off if I say another proven, like, guaranteed wideout? Because I mean,
if it weren't for Caleb Douglas, I'd go there. I did consider that.
Yeah.
And Coy Aiken. I mean, you've just got some guys that are pretty steady eddies.
And you do. I think it speaks to your team in that what you've been able to establish here, that this is a difficult question to toss around. I guess I would fall back to, because, I mean, again, Calvin, we thought they may even add another running back, even though they'd added Quentin Joyner because of the departure that you had in Cameron Valdez. So I don't know. This answer will certainly be easier to offer up, say, October 1st,
Yeah. Boy, I wish we had some more of this. Here or there.
Yeah, or maybe a different version of whatever you chose incorrectly, or somebody just didn't emerge like you thought, or they're not.
Could we be talking special teams? I mean, it's all on the table. We'll see.
Yeah.
Let us know how you feel in the YouTube comments. Shoot us a text if you're a Matador mobster.
I like that though. The cherry on top. I mean, I will say this too. I hate cherries. Every time you get a sundae anywhere and they put the little cherry on it, it's just trash to me. Sonic, save it. Like, give it to somebody else, man. Give somebody two. I don't want it. It's terrible. Cherries are the suck. Okay, sorry for the rant.
That is an insane thought and could be something that would destroy the ties that bind this show together. So we're just going to have to leave it there because I want to keep her intact at least for another episode. All right, Chris, appreciate your time. Enjoyed it all right up until those disgusting cherry takes. But I'm still looking forward to the next one, man. We'll see you then.
Okay, I appreciate it. I will now going forward give you all the cherries and out of my drinks or whatever they're served
Save them
on.
up.
Yeah, there you go. You are allowed. Man, appreciate the time. We'll keep pushing through here and talk to everybody next time. Keep hope alive, people, and thank you for all the birthday wishes out there. Yes, I did get a year older recently, so glad to keep having them. It's because I hadn't eaten cherries all these years. I think it's good.
Better than the alternative.
Yes, no doubt.
Better for you continuing to live on. So happy birthday. Hope it's a great week. And yeah, you're talking to a guy whose mother used to be dropping boxes of cherries into the Christmas stockings. And by mother, I mean Santa Claus, of course, but I am a diehard, dyed in the wool. I may go to the bottom of the Sonic Cup first for the cherries. I'll drill a hole through the bottom kind of guy. I'm not going to get personal about it. Like I said, we're just going to wrap up the show and let these emotions cool off a little bit. Thank you all for being out there. Appreciate your time. As always, get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Appreciate the everydayers for always being out there. And thanks to the Matador Mob as well. Hit the show notes and find a link to a free 14-day trial. That's your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text and straight to your phone. Bet there'll be a few cherry take texts coming in hot. Looking forward to that. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks as always for the time. We hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.